The hood was ripped from Veronica's head, and blinding light flooded her vision. She gasped, choking on stale air as the world slowly came into focus. Cold concrete beneath her. Rough rope biting into her wrists. A single flickering bulb swinging above her head like a pendulum counting down to something terrible. And standing directly in front of her, close enough to touch, was the woman she had mourned for 5 years. "Hello, baby girl." Her mother's voice was exactly as Veronica remembered it, warm and melodic, completely at odds with the coldness in her dark eyes. "You've grown up so beautiful. Just like I knew you would." Veronica's throat burned. Whether from screaming or crying or the hood that had suffocated her for hours, she couldn't remember. Her mind was a hurricane of confusion, grief, and rage all spinning together until she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. "You're supposed to be dead." "I know, sweetheart. And I'm sorry you had to believe that. But it was necessary." Her mother, Grace Okafor, pulled up a metal chair and sat across from her daughter like they were about to have afternoon tea. She crossed her legs elegantly, her expensive heels clicking against the concrete. "I had to disappear to protect you. To protect us both." "Protect me?" Veronica's laugh was bitter and broken, scraping out of her chest like shards of glass. "You abandoned me. You left me with a father who chose his new wife over me. You let me spend 5 years grieving, struggling, starving, nearly dying on the streets. That's your idea of protection?" Grace's perfectly composed face flickered, the first crack appearing in her armor. "Everything I did was for a reason, Veronica. And now that you've married into the Kwan family, you're finally in a position to help me finish what I started." Welcome back to part 2 of this incredible story, fam. If you haven't watched part 1, go back and watch it first because you will be completely lost. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because this channel is home to the most dramatic love stories on YouTube. Now let's get back into this chaos because it's about to get even crazier. Veronica stared at her mother, desperately trying to reconcile the woman before her with the loving parent she remembered from childhood. The mother who used to braid her hair while singing old Nigerian folk songs. The mother who made jollof rice every Sunday and told her she could be anything she wanted to be. That woman was gone. Maybe she had never existed at all. Grace looked older, yes, with silver streaking her natural hair and fine lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. But she was still beautiful, still commanding, still radiating an energy that demanded attention. "What did you start?" Veronica asked quietly. "What is this really about, Mom?" The word felt foreign on her tongue. Mom. As if she still had one. Grace leaned back in her chair, a strange satisfaction crossing her features. 20 years ago, I worked for the Kwan family. Not Jae-won's father, but his grandfather, the original patriarch. Old Man Kwan. I was young, ambitious, and very good at my job. I handled their international accounts, moved money between continents, made problems disappear on paper. You were a criminal. I was a survivor. Just like you are now. Grace's eyes hardened like polished stones. But the old man, he wanted more than my professional skills. He came to my apartment one night, drunk and entitled, expecting me to just give myself to him because he paid my salary. Veronica's stomach turned. What happened? I refused him. I fought back. And for that, he destroyed everything I had built. Grace's voice trembled with old rage. He framed me for embezzlement. Put a price on my head. Forced me to flee the country in the middle of the night. I lost everything, Veronica. My career. My reputation. My safety. My daughter. Then why didn't you take me with you? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with years of abandonment and grief. Because having you with me would have made you a target too. I had to let you go so you could have a normal life. A safe life. Safe? Veronica's voice cracked. You think my life was safe? Victoria treated me like garbage. Dad pretended I didn't exist. I was thrown out on the street with nothing. How is any of that safe? Grace stood abruptly, pacing the small room like a caged animal. I didn't know how bad it would get. By the time I realized what Victoria was doing to you, you were already surviving. Already strong. And I was already too deep in my plans to surface without destroying everything. What plans? Grace stopped pacing and turned to face her daughter. The only thing I managed to take when I fled was evidence. Documents, recordings, photographs. 30 years of proof showing every dirty deal the Kwan family ever made. Enough to bring down their entire empire. Veronica's blood ran cold. That's what those men at the mansion were talking about. That's what they wanted. Yes. And now that you've married J1, you can help me access his private files. Security codes. Bank accounts. The evidence I have is damning, but with inside information, it becomes devastating. You want me to betray my husband. I want you to help me get justice. By destroying the man I love? The words slipped out before Veronica could stop them. Grace's expression shifted, surprise flickering through her carefully controlled features. Love? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You've known him for 2 weeks. That's not love. That's infatuation. Stockholm Syndrome, maybe. He bought you with money and comfort, and you're confusing gratitude for something deeper. You don't know anything about what I feel. I know you're my daughter. I know you're smarter than this. Grace crouched down, bringing her face level with Veronica's. Jae-won Kwan is a criminal, baby girl. His family has killed people. Destroyed lives. They profit from suffering every single day. Whatever sweet nothings he's whispered in your ear, that doesn't change what he is. And what are you? You kidnapped me. You're holding me prisoner. How are you any better than them? Grace's hand shot out, slapping Veronica across the face so hard her head snapped to the side. Stars exploded across her vision, and she tasted blood where her teeth had cut the inside of her cheek. I am your mother. Grace's voice was ice. I sacrificed everything for you. Everything. And you're going to throw it away for a man in a wheelchair who can't even protect you from his own enemies? Veronica slowly turned her head back, meeting her mother's eyes without flinching despite the pain radiating through her face. He's more of a man than anyone you've ever known. And when he finds me, you're going to regret every single thing you've done. Grace stared at her for a long moment. Then she stood, smoothing down her designer clothes like they had just finished a pleasant conversation. You have 24 hours to reconsider your loyalty. After that, I get what I need with or without your cooperation. And trust me, baby girl, you don't want to find out what that looks like. The door slammed shut behind her, and Veronica was alone with the flickering light and the echo of her mother's threat. Miles away, in the ruins of the Kwan mansion, Jae-won was at war. The attack had left the house in shambles. Shattered glass covered every surface like deadly snow. Bullet holes pockmarked the walls in random patterns. Blood stained the marble floors, some from enemies and some from the people Jae-won had sworn to protect. Eun-ji was in surgery at a private hospital. The doctors said she had a 50-50 chance. 4 of Jae-won's security team were dead, their bodies already being prepared for proper burials. And Veronica was gone. Gone because she had surrendered herself to save them. Gone because Jae-won hadn't been strong enough to stop her. He sat in his wheelchair in the wreckage of his study, surrounded by his most trusted men. Broken glass crunched under the wheels every time he moved. His brother Dae-young stood by what used to be a window, his usual arrogance replaced with grim determination. And in the corner, bound to a chair with blood dripping from her nose and split lip, sat the traitor who had made all of this possible. Mrs. Park. How long? Jae-won's voice was colder than anyone in the room had ever heard it. How long have you been working for Grace Okafor? Mrs. Park laughed, the sound hollow and defiant. Her perfectly styled hair was disheveled, her designer suit torn, but her eyes still burned with conviction. 15 years. Since before you were even running the family business. Grace saved my life when your grandfather would have had me killed for a minor mistake. I owe her everything. You owe her your life. And now you'll give me Veronica's location, or you'll give me yours. Threatening an old woman, Jae-won? Your grandfather would be proud. You're just like him after all. Jae-won wheeled himself closer until he was inches from Mrs. Park's face. I am nothing like that monster. But I will become worse than him if that's what it takes to save my wife. Your wife was never really yours. Mrs. Park's smile was cruel. The contract marriage, the timing, finding Veronica at exactly the right moment when she was most desperate, all of it was Grace's design. She's been planning this for years. Your little accident just gave her the perfect opportunity. The room went silent. Jae-won felt the words hit him like physical blows, each one stealing a little more air from his lungs. My accident, he said slowly. You knew about that too? Mrs. Park's confident expression faltered. No. That wasn't us. That was someone else entirely. Who? I don't know. Dae-young stepped forward from the window, his fist connecting with Mrs. Park's jaw hard enough to snap her head to the side. My brother asked you a question. I told you, I don't know. Mrs. Park spat blood onto the floor. Grace had nothing to do with the car accident. She was as surprised as anyone when it happened. It actually delayed her plans by months while she waited for you to become desperate enough to seek a contract wife. Then who tried to kill me? Who put me in this chair? Silence stretched through the ruined room. Mrs. Park's eyes flickered, just for a moment, towards something behind Jae-won. Toward the family portrait that still hung crooked on the wall. Look closer to home, she whispered. Someone who benefited from you being weak. Someone who wanted you out of the way. Jae-won and Dae-young exchanged a look, the same horrible suspicion dawning in both their minds. Father. But that was a problem for another time. Right now, only one thing mattered. Where is Grace holding Veronica? Mrs. Park shook her head slowly, almost sadly. Kill me if you want. Torture me for hours. I will never betray Grace. She's the only person who ever treated me like I was worth something. She's more family to me than anyone in this house ever was. Then you're useless. Jae-won nodded to two of his men. Take her to the basement. Keep her alive. We'll revisit this conversation when I have my wife back. As Mrs. Park was dragged away, Dae-young moved closer to his brother. We need to find that location fast. Every hour we waste is another hour Grace has to break Veronica or worse. I know. Jae-won's hands gripped the wheels of his chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. Pull every resource we have. Surveillance teams, informants, satellite tracking, everything. I want eyes on every property Grace Okafor has ever been connected to, every associate she's ever worked with, every alias she's ever used. That could take days. Then work faster. Dae-young hesitated, something unfamiliar crossing his face. Concern, maybe. Or the closest thing to it that he was capable of feeling. And what about father? What about him? If he really was behind your accident, if he tried to have his own son killed. Jae-won's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. Then I'll deal with him. But not until Veronica is safe. She is the priority. Nothing else matters until I have her back. Dae-young studied his younger brother for a long moment. They had been rivals their entire lives, competing for their father's approval, fighting for position within the family hierarchy, resenting each other for perceived slights and imagined betrayals. But in this moment, watching Jae-won's desperation, Dae-young saw something he had never noticed before. His brother was not just powerful or intelligent or ruthless. He was human. You really love her, don't you? Dae-young asked quietly. The girl from nowhere. The one nobody vetted. You actually fell in love with her. Jae-won didn't answer. He didn't need to. I'll find her location, Dae-young said finally. Whatever it takes. Okay fam, we need to pause here for a second because I know you're stressed. Comment right now and tell me who you think tried to kill Jae-won. Was it really his own father? And what do you think is going to happen to Veronica? Make sure you've hit that like button because we're only getting started with the drama. Back in the concrete room, 12 hours had passed. Veronica had drifted in and out of consciousness, her body screaming from being tied in the same position for so long. Her wrists were raw and bleeding from the rope. Her face throbbed where her mother had slapped her. And her heart ached with a pain that had nothing to do with physical wounds. She kept seeing Jaewon's face in that final moment. The desperation in his eyes as he reached for her. The way he had tried to crawl after her, his broken body fighting against its limitations. The sound of him screaming her name as the hood came down over her head. He would come for her. She had to believe that. She had to hold on to that single thread of hope or she would lose herself completely in this darkness. The door screeched open and Veronica tensed, expecting her mother. But it wasn't Grace who entered. It was a young woman around Veronica's age, beautiful in that sharp, dangerous way that came from growing up with too much money and not enough love. She had delicate Korean features, flawless skin, and hair styled so perfectly it probably cost more than most people's rent. So you're the famous Veronica. The woman circled her slowly, heels clicking against the concrete like a metronome. I have to say, I expected more. When I heard Jaewon had married some random black girl off the street, I thought she must be truly exceptional. She stopped in front of Veronica, tilting her head like she was examining a disappointing painting. But you're just ordinary. Nothing special at all. Who the hell are you? The woman smiled, and it was cruel enough to cut glass. Hannah Park. Jaewon's real fiancée. Or I was supposed to be, before you came along and complicated everything. Veronica's blood went cold. The arranged marriage. The contract that Jaewon's father had mentioned at the mansion before everything exploded into chaos. This was the woman who was supposed to become Mrs. Kwon. You're working with my mother. Working with her? Hannah laughed, the sound high and mocking. Sweetie, I'm funding her entire operation. Grace needed resources to execute her brilliant revenge plan. I needed Jaewon's little contract wife out of the picture. It was a perfect partnership. You want him that badly? A man who clearly doesn't want you? A man in a wheelchair who chose a stranger over you? Hannah's smile flickered, something ugly passing behind her eyes. I don't want him. Honestly, the thought of touching him makes my skin crawl. Who wants a cripple for a husband? She wrinkled her nose in disgust. What I want is what marrying him gives me. Power. Position. Control of the Kwon Empire when his pathetic father finally dies. Jaewon is just a means to an end. A stepping stone. He'll never marry you. He won't have a choice. Hannah leaned closer, her expensive perfume overwhelming in the small space. By the time Grace is done leaking evidence against his family, the Kwon Empire will be in ruins. His father will be arrested or dead. His brother will flee the country like the coward he is. And Jaewon will be desperate, broken, willing to do anything to save what's left of his legacy. That's where I come in, offering salvation in exchange for a wedding ring and complete control. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I have. It's what I'm good at. Hannah straightened, adjusting the collar of her designer jacket. Your mother wants your cooperation. Help her access Jaewon's private files. Give her the passwords, security codes, account numbers. Do that, and she might let you live. You could disappear somewhere far away, start fresh, pretend none of this ever happened. And if I refuse? Then Grace will get the information anyway, just through more persuasive methods. And you'll die knowing that your sacrifice meant nothing. Hannah shrugged carelessly. Your choice, really. Veronica looked at this woman, this entitled, scheming, heartless woman who thought of people as chess pieces to be moved and discarded. She thought about everything she had survived to get here. The poverty. The rejection. The nights sleeping in cafe booths. The moment she signed that contract not knowing it would change everything. And she thought about Jaewon. The way he looked at her like she was precious. The way he held her like she mattered. The way he fought for her despite every limitation of his broken body. Something shifted inside Veronica's chest. The fear that had been gripping her heart transformed into something harder. Sharper. More dangerous. Go to hell. Hannah blinked. Excuse me? You heard me. Veronica's voice was steady now, stronger than it had been since she woke up in this nightmare. I'm not helping you. I'm not helping my mother. And when Jae-won finds me, because he will find me, I'm going to personally make sure you regret every single word that just came out of your mouth. For a moment, Hannah looked genuinely surprised. Women tied to chairs in concrete rooms weren't supposed to make threats. Then she laughed, the sound dripping with condescension. You really think he's coming for you? He's a cripple, Veronica. A broken man in a wheelchair. What's he going to do, roll in here and play hero? Please. He's more of a man than anyone you've ever known. More than you deserve. More than you could ever understand. Veronica leaned forward as far as her bonds would allow, meeting Hannah's eyes with fire in her own. And you're going to learn that the hard way. Hannah's amusement faded into something darker. Colder. More dangerous. We'll see about that, she whispered. She left without another word, the door slamming behind her hard enough to rattle the walls. And Veronica was alone again, in the dark, with nothing but her faith in a man everyone else seemed determined to underestimate. 48 hours after Veronica was taken, Jae-won finally got the break he needed. It came from an unexpected source. One of Dae-young's informants had managed to track the convoy of vehicles that had taken Veronica from the mansion. The trail led to an abandoned warehouse district on the outskirts of the city, a maze of crumbling buildings and rusted equipment that provided perfect cover for someone who didn't want to be found. Surveillance confirmed at least 20 armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Multiple points of entry, all heavily monitored. And heat signatures inside the main building suggesting 4 to 5 people, one of whom was positioned in what looked like a holding cell. Veronica. It's a fortress, Dae-young said, studying the surveillance feed spread across the table. 20 guards minimum, probably more inside. We'd need a small army to breach it without casualties. Then we use an army. Jae-won's voice was flat, emotionless, completely at odds with the storm raging behind his eyes. And if they kill her before we reach her? The moment they know we're coming. Then we don't let them know. Jae-won wheeled himself to a cabinet on the far wall, pulling out blueprints, maps, tactical equipment. Coordinated assault. Multiple entry points. Complete communication blackout on their end before we move in. That would require someone on the inside. We have someone on the inside. Dae-young frowned. Who? Me. The silence that followed was deafening. Every man in the room stared at Jae-won like he had just suggested flying to the moon. You can barely stand, Dae-young said carefully. Your legs. My legs work when I need them to. Jae-won's jaw tightened. The doctors said I might never walk again. They said I'd spend the rest of my life in this chair. They were wrong. I've been doing physical therapy for months, pushing past every limit they set. I can walk with support. Not far, not fast, but enough. Enough to get killed. Enough to save my wife. Jae-won met his brother's eyes, and there was no room for argument in his gaze. I'm not asking for permission, Dae-young. I'm going. The only question is whether you're coming with me. Another long pause. Then Dae-young sighed, running a hand through his perfect hair until it was disheveled. You're insane, he said finally. But I suppose that's a family trait. Is that a yes? It's an I'm not letting my idiot brother get himself killed without me there to watch. Dae-young grabbed a tactical vest from the cabinet, checking the weapon holstered inside. Let's go get your wife. The assault began at 3 in the morning. Jae-won's team moved through the warehouse district like ghosts, taking out perimeter guards with silent precision. Each fallen body was quickly concealed. Each neutralized threat brought them closer to the main building where Veronica was being held. The wheelchair was impossible in this terrain, so Jae-won had done something he hadn't attempted since the accident. He was on his feet, supported by military-grade leg braces hidden beneath his tactical pants. A cane in one hand. A gun in the other. And sheer determination holding him upright when his body screamed at him to fall. Every step was agony. His spine felt like it was filled with broken glass. His legs threatened to buckle with each forward motion. Sweat poured down his face, mixing with the grim determination in his eyes. But he kept moving. For Veronica. Only for Veronica. They breached the building through a maintenance entrance on the east side, encountering minimal resistance. Dae-young's team took point, clearing rooms with brutal efficiency while Jae-won and his personal unit followed close behind. Then, on the third floor, Jae-won heard it. Her voice. Faint, muffled by walls and distance, but unmistakable. You can't keep me here forever. He moved faster, ignoring the pain, ignoring the protest of his damaged body. His men flanked him automatically, forming a protective formation as they advanced down the hallway toward a reinforced steel door at the end. Breaching charge, Jae-won ordered quietly. One of his men planted explosives while the others took position. Weapons ready. Hearts pounding. The moment stretching into eternity. On my mark, Jae-won said, his voice steady despite everything. 3, 2, 1. The door blew inward with a deafening roar. Jae-won was through before the smoke cleared, his gun raised, his eyes scanning the chaos until they found the only thing that mattered. Veronica. Tied to a chair in the center of the room. Bruised, exhausted, her face swollen from where someone had hit her. But alive. Alive and looking at him with an expression that broke his heart and healed it at the same time. Jae-won. I'm here. He moved toward her, but a figure emerged from the shadows behind Veronica, and Jae-won froze mid-step. Grace Okafor had a gun pressed against her daughter's temple. Drop the weapon, Mr. Kwon. Grace's voice was eerily calm. Or I'll paint the walls with her blood. The room went absolutely still. Jae-won's men had their weapons trained on Grace, red dots dancing across her forehead, but no one fired. One wrong twitch, one moment of hesitation on Grace's part, and Veronica was dead. Slowly, never breaking eye contact with the woman who held his wife's life in her hands, Jae-won lowered his gun to the floor. Good boy. Grace's smile was cold enough to freeze the air. I have to say, I'm genuinely impressed. I didn't expect you to find us this quickly. And look at you, walking no less. You must really love my daughter. I do. How touching. How incredibly, tragically touching. Grace's gun pressed harder against Veronica's temple, making her wince. Unfortunately for you, love doesn't change anything. I've spent 20 years planning my revenge against your family. I'm not going to stop now. I'm not my grandfather, Jae-won said evenly. I had nothing to do with what happened to you. You benefit from his crimes. You live in luxury built on the suffering of people like me. That makes you complicit. Mom, please. Veronica's voice was strained with terror. This isn't justice. It's revenge. And it won't bring back the years you lost. It won't heal anything. It won't change what he did to you. Quiet. Grace's composure cracked, just slightly. You chose him over me. Your own mother. You don't get to lecture me about healing. I chose love over hate. I chose building a future over destroying the past. That's not the same thing as choosing him over you. Something flickered in Grace's eyes. Pain. Regret. The ghost of the mother she used to be, still lurking somewhere beneath all that rage. Grace. Jae-won took a single step forward, his hands raised in surrender. I will give you everything. Every dollar my family has. Every property, every account, every asset. Take it all. Just let her go. You would do that? Give up your empire for one woman? She's not just any woman. She's everything. Veronica's eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head desperately. Jae-won, no. Don't. I would burn the whole world down if it meant keeping you safe. Jae-won's voice broke on the words, all his walls crumbling at once. You're my wife. My heart. The only thing in my life that's ever felt real. So yes, Grace, I would give up everything. Name your price. Grace stared at him, truly stared, like she was seeing him for the first time. Her gun wavered, lowering a fraction of an inch. That was all the opening Dae-young needed. The shot came from behind Grace, from a position no one had seen him take during the confrontation. The bullet struck her shoulder, spinning her away from Veronica as she screamed in pain and fury. Jaewon lunged forward, a knife appearing in his hand from nowhere, slicing through Veronica's bonds in 3 quick movements. She fell into his arms, sobbing, her hands fisting in his tactical vest like she would never let go. "You came," she gasped. "You actually came for me. I'll always come for you." He held her tighter, pressing kisses to her hair, her forehead, her tear-stained cheeks. "Always. No matter what. Always." Behind them, Daeyoung secured the wounded Grace while the team swept the building for remaining threats. Hannah Park was found hiding in a supply closet on the 2nd floor, her designer clothes stained with fierce sweat, her perfect composure completely shattered. "Please," she begged as they dragged her out. "Please, I'll do anything. I have money. I have connections. I can help you."